What is up, and I welcome each and every one of you back to a brand new video. I hope you're all having fantastic days. Despite the fact that what you may see is a Hungary video, you might be expecting a Hungary playthrough. We're not going to play the Lord Farquaad from Shrek guy this time. We are actually going to be looking at the tech tree and deducing who is the worst unit of each era. We're just looking at base units. We're not looking at unique units. We're not looking at special hidden type units. No vampires, no black armies as Hungary, even though we are playing as Hungary. The other thing is, we're not also counting ship units because ships are just absolute trash in this game. It's not their fault, it's just the way the game works. Triremes, galleys, and quadriremes are just the worst units in the entire game without no restrictions. The fact that naval tiles, really, instead of, the problem with naval is that instead of having this where you could surround a city with units, maybe only 2 tiles will be, if it's a coastal city, you'll only have 2 tiles to melee attack from, and maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 tiles to range attack. You're not going to be able to surround the city. If the city has walls, you have really no chance of taking it. And especially guys like quadriremes who only have 1 range as a ranged boat, really doesn't work out that well, especially considering that you can't enter deep water, so you're not going to be able to position as well. Boats just suck in this game, so I feel like counting them is just akin to me going to an elementary school and destroying a 5th grade basketball team. It doesn't matter how short I am in real life or tall I am. I'm actually 7'5", by the way. True story. No, it's not. It's just not fair to rank them. We are going to be ranking scout units for the most part. I'll get into that in a little bit. Without further ado, let's start in the ancient era. We have a solid amount of units to choose from here. We have about 6 different units, right? Just for the timestamp, 145, okay. We have 6 different units: the warrior, the scout, the archer, the battering ram, the spearman, and the war chariot. Despite the fact that I want to take every scout, remove the dog obviously, and burn each one to a crisp, scouts are still decently valuable early game, especially if you do prioritize exploring through the normie means, aka not going through Amani and trying to find city-states that way. But the warrior and the archer are also out of the equation because warriors are cheap and effective, and archers are the best ancient era unit in the game by far. They're actually the best unit in the game in general. Battering ram is literally essential. It is an S-tier support unit. You need it if you do want to go to war. So that leaves the war chariot, what's it called again? The heavy chariot and the spearman. Now, they're both the same cost. It's the spearman. Spearman's absolutely trash. It's dog shit. The spear's just absolutely just disgusting for multiple reasons. Number one, swordsman is literally right after, and swordsman can 2-shot, if not 1-shot spearman most of the time. The other thing is that the chariot at the very least gets 3 movement speed and 3 extra combat strength for the same cost. The only way a spearman will be effective is against chariots. They don't win against cavalry either, right? I think they either get 5 or 10 extra combat strength, and even 10 combat strength, the spearman will not be able to deal with the horsemen. It's not good specifically even against someone like Gilgamesh, because Gilgamesh's war chariots don't get penalties for attacking anti-cavalry units. I guess the Saka horse archer, but then at the end of the day, if you really need spearmen to take out Saka horse archers, you've already lost the game. Chariots, it's more movement speed, stronger, it can decimate warriors in the right position, and can move around, no zone of control penalty, and can decimate archers as well. Spearman is just the bootleg version of a warrior. It is quite literally it's just trash, alright? It's just trash. Don't build the spearman. Moving on to the medieval era now, classical era, sorry. We only have 3 units to choose from. Again, no boats, meaning no quadriremes. So we have the horsemen, swordsmen, and catapults. In my opinion, all 3 are at the very least very serviceable units, but at the end of the day, this is process of elimination. You were looking at the Chad horseman, the what's another word for Chad? Chad Regupta swordsman, and then you're just looking at Catapult, who isn't really a simp or anything, but he's just like a normal guy. He's a solid person. The problem with Catapults is you need a great general in order to move and attack in the same turn. So unless you're playing the Ottomans, building Catapults really is not worth it, unless you're going for a horseman rush and the enemy AI gets walls and you're rushing to get some sort of unit to take out the walls. Horsemen and swordsmen are just S-tier units in general. The catapult is not, therefore the catapult is the worst unit in the classical era, although it is still serviceable if you do want to absolutely bombard and break every single Geneva Convention in sight while taking enemy cities and throwing large stones at them. Now we're looking at the medieval era, and this is where things get interesting. Again, only 2 tech pass for the medieval era. Yeah, it's the Renaissance. We have 6 units again. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-7. Military engineer is it's technically a unit, but it's really like a builder type of unit, so we're not counting that. First things first, knights and men-at-arms, remove that. Same thing with crossbowmen. Same thing with siege towers. They are all very, very good. The trebuchet is also much, much stronger than the catapult, and it only comes a little bit later, so really, the trebuchet can withstand a few hits and does do a lot of damage to cities at this stage. 45 bombard strength against 35 is much higher, and 35 melee strength. It means it can actually defend very well against swordsmen and horsemen, so I'm actually going to keep this from elimination, leaving us with the skirmisher and the pikeman. Now, they are both absolutely trash units that you should not build at all. I really don't see a need for the skirmisher. Here's the thing. There's no need for the skirmisher, but the pikeman just loses. Even if he gets 10 combat strength from anti-cavalry, you're looking at barely beating the knight, and the knight has more movement speed and ignores zone of control. So is it really like... I played a Mongolia video, which you should definitely check out, by the way. It is probably still on my channel, or it's even in the sidebar. But I was using Keshiks and knight to take out pikemen against a Lady Thick Thighs, 6 guy. Hey guys, real quick before we get right back into the video, the goal is to be bigger than PewDiePie by the end of about, next week, I would say. That's a fairly attainable goal due to my assertions. But yeah, if you enjoy my content and want to help me out, subscribe and let's get right back into the video. So, it's just really, like, pikemen have no use. If they only get minor victories in the best possible scenario against knights, what's the point of building a pikeman, which is at 180, when you could build the man-at-arms who is cheaper by, like, what? The man-at-arms is cheaper. I know it costs iron, but I mean, god damn, is iron really that bad? Is it really that hard to find iron? I don't know. I'm going to give it to the skirmisher, though, because there really is no point for a skirmisher. At the very least, a pikeman can hold his own. A skirmisher has 20 melee strength. He will quite literally get decimated. Like, a breeze would decimate a skirmisher. I could port myself into the game, and I could probably punch a skirmisher before he does any sort of damage to me. So, yeah, skirmisher's the worst medieval era guy, but don't be fooled, the pikeman is also just as trash. Looking at the Renaissance era next, yes, Renaissance era is 2 as well. Is everything 2? Like 2 tech paths? It seems that way. I think so. Alright then, so back to the Renaissance era. We got musketmen, bombards, and pike and shots. Wow, we really are spoiled for choice here, aren't we? Again, it's obviously pike and shot. Musketmen counter these guys, and they're also cheaper, it seems like, and they are also just stronger against pike and shots in general. Bombards are necessary at this stage of the game because Renaissance-era walls don't have, like, a siege tower or a battering ram you could use to batter away against the city. So, yeah, if you thought we were in any way supporting any UN resolutions or making sure that the Geneva Convention is fully adhered to on this channel, it is called the Geneva Suggestion, because we are not even going to take a look at that, and bombards are the epitome of that. We're just going to be blasting enemy cities. I kind of took a dark turn, but yeah, bombard's strong, pike and shot's weak. Pike and shots are the worst Renaissance era unit by far. Even if you count caravels and frigates, I feel like this is when naval units get, like, serviceable. So I'd really even take frigates and caravels over pike and shots at this point. Pike and shots are even worse than pikemen. That's how bad they are. Looking at the industrial era now, we are again so spoiled for choice. Again, don't count the Hussar. We get the line infantry, we got the field cannon, we got the cuirassier, and we got the ranger. It's obviously the ranger, but I feel like that is just too obvious. Like, scout units are all just trash. So again, technically it's the ranger, but let's remove the ranger for now and see which is the worst out of these 3 units. It really is tough, but I think the worst unit out of all these 3 is the field cannon. The reason for that is simple. The line infantry is just about it's a little bit more expensive than the cuirassier, and it is a little bit stronger, but it is oh wait, actually, it's way more expensive. Alright, I changed my mind. It's the line infantry. If you don't have a unique unit, line infantry is like 30 more combat strength for 1 extra melee strength. The cuirassier is it's the best unit in the industrial era for movement speed and just as much combat strength. Well, you think the pike and shot's gonna do anything? No, sit down. The pike and shot's absolutely trash. Probably one of the worst units in the game. Now it's between field cannon and line infantry, and the field cannon is actually melee strength decently close, and when you factor in that it will get at the very least 2 ranged attacks before the line infantry can really do anything, at the very least 1, the field cannon does win one-on-one engagements against the line infantry in any case. And yeah, the field cannon is resourceless and cheaper, so therefore it is better than the line infantry. So yeah, I guess technically Ranger's the worst, but since we're trying to be a little bit more exciting, it is going to be the line infantry for the industrial era. Next up, we are looking at the modern era. I think it goes modern, atomic, and information. Modern, atomic, information. And then that's future. Okay, then. The modern era, we have the infantry, artillery, not battleships, we have tanks. I'm not going to count the supply convoys, and then we have AT crew and submarines. We also have biplanes, by the way. Looking at this, you remove the tank completely. The tank is really strong. Again, the AT crew kind of suffers from the same fate as Spearmen and Pike and Shots. It is a little bit better, I will give it that, but not much better, quite honestly. If you beeline the AT crew, I could see a use for it, I guess, but even against tanks got 4 movement speed and ignore zone of control. Good luck catching up to them. They're just going to surround and destroy you. After that, we have infantry, who are, again, 75 combat strength. They are more expensive than the AT crew, so this is what I mean by, like, in the end, their maintenance cost is higher as well. I still would rather have infantry than the AT crew, because the infantry counters the AT crew, and, yeah, tanks really are kind of a rarity here. It might be the infantry, but it's, like, close between AT crew and infantry. The anti-cavalry line really picks up here. Obviously not artillery, because, again, we need them to absolutely destroy any city that has any sort of defenses. The observation balloon is an absolutely astounding unit. It's probably the best in the modern era. The biplane is a solid unit, and the thing is, if you get it up quickly enough, you will be able to absolutely decimate enemy land units, especially considering that the AI doesn't really build biplane units at all. So it is between AT crew and infantry. You could go with either one. I think just for shits and giggles, I am going to give it to the AT crew this time. Infantry is the worst modern era unit, but they're all actually fairly solid. It's more expensive. It costs oil. Its maintenance cost is higher. It is earlier on the tech tree, but like by 1 tech, so it really doesn't matter. 1-on-1, the infantry will beat the AT crew, but the fact that tanks are here, and tanks are actually much stronger than the melee counterpart this time, having an AT crew is actually much more valuable than having a pike and shot against Corsairs. So, yeah, infantry takes the L this time around, surprisingly enough. Looking at the atomic era now, this is where things get good. We got the drone, we got the bomber and the fighter, anti-air gun, machine guns, not going to count these two, spec ops, and helicopters. For the atomic era, you obviously have to remove these 2 units because they are just the best units in the game, potentially. The drone, again, serves the same purpose as the observation balloon, this time giving an extra 5 bombard strength, so you remove that, just elimination-wise. I'm actually going to give it to the anti-air gun this time. It is a support unit, but again, I am counting stuff like battering rams, drones stuff. The only thing I didn't count was the supply convoy, because it heals, and it is really good, actually, because healing is very nice in this game. Again, if you want to be specific and talk about... Actually, no. The Spec Ops is better than the anti-air gun because the AI almost never builds anti-air guns. And if they do, it is much better in general to spend a little more production to get the fighter, who can both attack instead of just being absolutely useless and sitting there, and who can also counter enemy airplane units themselves. Not to mention you also have missile cruisers, so anti-air kind of gets redundant. Machine gun's pretty nice, as is the helicopter. Spec Ops is, despite the fact still being really bad, is still better than the anti-air gun. So, yeah. Anti-air gun, do not build it in the modern era unless you don't have aluminum or something and you're forced to build it. Do we count nukes? It doesn't matter. If we count nukes, they're not getting eliminated anyway. But yeah, it's the atomic era. And finally, because the future era has no units, we are looking at the, what's it called again? The information era. Now, we are spoiled for choice here. We got the giant death robot. We got the mechanized infantry, we got rocket artillery, we got mobile SAM, we got jet fighters, we got modern AT, we got modern armor, we got jet bomber. I don't know why they just called it modern AT instead of like some other sort of name, like even a bazooka crew or something. It just seems like they got lazy towards the end of development and were like, oh man, we need one more anti-cavalry unit. What should we choose? Hey, I got this. Modern AT, which is kind of weird. I thought helicopter was anti-armor. Never mind. Civ 5, the helicopter unit is actually an anti-cavalry unit, but in Civ 6, it's light cavalry. So looking at through all this, it's obviously not the giant death robot, best unit in the game, like strength-wise. Mechanized infantry is infantry with extra movement speed. Rocket artillery is essential for any domination game. Mobile SAMs are actually valuable because the AI does tend to build airplane units at this time, and it also protects against nuclear attack. So if you keep like one mobile SAM in each of your main cities, you'll be able to defend against any sort of nuclear attacks, which does make them a lot better than the anti-air units, so they're not going to be eliminated this time around. Remove jet fighters and bombers as well, because these guys are absolutely just they're the best units. The jet bomber is the best unit in the game until the giant death robot gets the anti-air equipment somewhere in this unrevealed tech. Again, thermonuclear device is just the best in the game. So I think I would have to give this one. I really have no idea. They're all really good. I guess through process of elimination, I will give it to... we'll make a tie. Mechanized infantry and the modern AT. The mechanized infantry is more expensive. It has more movement speed, though, and it does... No, it doesn't. They both have the same movement speed. Huh. Well, in that case, I think I'm actually going to give it to the mechanized infantry being the worst one here, because you're going to need modern ATs, because modern armor is going to absolutely shred mechanized infantry. Modern AT is also cheaper to build. They have the same movement speed, same combat strength, and mechanized actually requires oil to build, so I am actually going to give back-to-back Ls to the infantry class unit. They got an L there and then an L over here. But again, by the time you get to like the modern era, all units are good, essentially. At this point, it is better to build like a combined arms approach to just counter any sort of threats you might face. So, yeah, that's my worst units for each era. If you guys want to see the best unit for each era, let me know down below. Like, comment, subscribe if you have enjoyed. Just as a quick rundown, a quick summary. When does this happen? It happens at 15:30. So let me write in my notes real quick. 1:45 and 15:30 is when I'm going to put the timestamps. The archer, like in the ancient era, it is the spearman because it really doesn't do that well against cavalry units coming after it, and it struggles against warrior units, and it's also expensive. For the classical era, it is the catapult due to process of elimination. You got 2 S tier units in the horsemen and swordsmen, and then the catapult's just like C or B tier. Medieval era, it is actually the skirmisher. Although recon units, I don't know if it's fair to count them because they're just like so bad in this game in general. But after that, it would be the pikeman for just like a general type of unit. Renaissance era, it's the pike and shot because you have 3 options. Musketman is cheaper than the pike and shot, and the bombard is absolutely necessary. Industrial era, it is the line infantry because again, you are spoiled for choice. You're not really spoiled for choice, and the cuirassier is cheaper with only 1 less combat strength and 1 more movement speed. Not to mention, iron is easier to find than niter, and the field cannon is almost as strong, has a ranged attack, 2 range, and also does not cost resources and is cheaper. Again, technically the ranger, but I don't even know if it's fair like to count scout line units at this point. So we're just gonna give it to the line infantry, but like technically it is the ranger. Modern era, it's the infantry because this is the point where AT crews are really effective because tanks are a lot stronger than their infantry counterparts this time around. So you do need a few anti-tank units, not to mention planes and artillery are necessary. For the atomic era, it is anti-air units. The AI usually doesn't build anti-air units, and if they do, you might as well use the fighter to both attack and use as anti-air defense. Again, spec ops are actually more valuable than the anti-air because at the very least, they can snipe enemy support units, so if they have something like an anti-air unit themselves, or if they have like a drone or something, you can easily move into spec ops, take him out, simple. Finally, over here in the, I keep forgetting, information era, the worst unit is going to be the mechanized infantry. Again, the mobile SAM actually stops nuclear attacks, and at this stage, the AI does get air units. The fighter, bomber, giant death robot are pretty much the messiah in this universe, so you remove them from the equation. Rocket artillery is very nice. The modern AT is actually needed to take out the modern armor, was more strong than the mechanized infantry with more movement speed. So process of elimination, mechanized infantry is bad. Although in the last really 3 eras, all units are pretty much somewhat serviceable. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Peace. New series coming out today, by the way.